Hello, I am Ruby Falconer. Today's date is October 19th, 2020, and this is a Shamanic Egyptian Astrological update for the upcoming week. I want to acknowledge that the last period of time has been very intense. We are actually coming to the completion of a crescendo of intensity that began on September 29th. And that's a crescendo of intensity within an entire year of intensity. But I do want to acknowledge that the last 3 weeks have been particularly difficult. On September 29th, the planet Saturn, who is the principle of restriction in traditional astrology, this is Sobek the Old King, changed direction. He turned direct. And Saturn turned direct in a square, that's a challenging relationship, to transiting Mars. Mars is retrograde in the sign Aries, which is Mars' own sign. Mars is said to rule Aries. And Mars is the warrior king. He's Set, the warrior king. In the intervening time, Mars has retrograded back through a square to Pluto and also to Jupiter. And the square to Jupiter is happening now. Depending on where you live, it happened either yesterday, Sunday the 18th, or it's happening today, Sunday the 19th. I live on the east coast of the United States, and the square was exact this morning at 1:38 a.m. So points east of me, it's still happening today. Points west of me, it happened yesterday. But it doesn't matter. You know, this energy is intense and it's strong, and we feel it, whether it's waxing or waning, as we would say, whether it's coming on or going away, it's still intense. This is a completion of the energy that began on September 29th. So it's been a wild and intense 3 weeks. Mars retrograde. Mars turns retrograde every 2 years or so for about 2 months. Mars retrograde is always an intense time. It's a period where things do not move forward in the way that we want them to go. Mars is about action, creativity, drive, manifestation. He's the god of war in Greek and Roman myth. He can be combative, he can be aggressive. He's certainly creative, he's a manifester. And when it's retrograde, he can't do any of that. So the end result is frustration, irritation, annoyance. We've had all of that over this period of time. And it's been intensified by the fact that he's in relationship to the great shift planets. Remember, that's Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn. So all of that intensity has really been increased over the last 3 weeks. Now, added to this, over the last week, since October 11th, we've had the sun move into the relationship to the great shift planets as well. First of all, on the 11th, the sun squared Jupiter, then it went on to square Pluto, and also yesterday, the 18th, the sun moved through a square to Saturn. So, you know, that's added to the energy. It's made it very intense. And so this transformative process that we've been going through all year long, the dismantling of the container of society as we know it, has really been intensifying. And for many of us, this has meant the dismantling of our personal container. And so, you know, this energy is very much there. Now, added to that, we've had some energy from Mercury. Mercury is retrograde, so we've got 2 of the 3 social planets. The social planets are Mercury, Venus, and Mars. 2 of them are retrograde. Mercury on October 7th, Mercury moved into an opposition to transiting Uranus, the Great Awakener, Wadjet, the Kundalini Queen, the Shatterer. Mercury moved into an opposition on October 7th to Uranus, and then on the 13th, Mercury turned retrograde within 3 degrees of that opposition. Yesterday, again, October 18th, Mercury moved into its 2nd opposition to Uranus, this time retrograde. So we've had lots of intense energy coming on, and what this has meant is there's been other people have provided eruptions and chaos in communication, and have triggered eruptions from our own unconscious into consciousness. And on the collective level, it has meant that there has been a kind of eruption of energy from the underworld into the collective consciousness since October 7th. It's now October 19th. So it's been an intense period of time. And what I can say to you is that in many ways, this is sort of the crescendo of this entire year. These 3 weeks has been sort of the top of the wave. And while this energy is not going away, it's going to still be around, and there's going to be many things that will activate it between now and its completion, which will be at the solstice in December. So there's more ahead of us around this energy, and there's more that's going to happen around this dismantling process that we're in. We've kind of gone over the top of the hill, so to speak. We're on the downhill slope now. And that does mean that we're going to be picking up some speed, as we continue in this process. So I want to acknowledge that, there's been a very intense period. And this last weekend has been quite intense. And I imagine many of you have been feeling that in your own lives. And there's been a reason for it. It was all a part of the ongoing conjunction between Saturn and Pluto, which was actually exact on January 12th. But everything that's been happening throughout this year refers back to that. And the presence of Jupiter, the principle of expansion, Horus, the young king, in relationship to Saturn, Sobek, the old king, and Pluto, Osiris, the lord of regeneration, has intensified the process that the conjunction between those two, between Saturn and Pluto, represents. And so it's what's made this particular Saturn-Pluto conjunction particularly intense. And you remember, this happens every 35 to 38 years, and it does represent the end of an era and the beginning of a new era. And it's going to take some time for us to be able to look back and see what that means, because we're in the middle of the transition right now. So, hang in there. This will move on. And we are, in a sense, moving over the most intense time right now, and moving through the most intense time right now. And I want to acknowledge that as we move forward, particularly over the next few weeks, having Mercury and Mars retrograde and slowing to station is going to continue the feeling of restriction and limitation, and that we can't move forward. The sense of kind of oppressive energy is going to keep it with us, even without the direct relationship between Mars to the great shift planets. Mercury will turn direct on Election Day on November 3rd. And what's important about that is Mercury is actually going to retrograde back into Libra on October 27th. And when it turns when it turns direct on November 3rd, it will be in a square to Saturn. So we have more of the great shift energy happening right there. And then we also will at that time have Mars stationary, and Mars will be turning direct in Aries around the 15th degree of Aries on November 13th. So we've got a lot of intensity around that. And yes, I do think that the intensity leading up to the election, and the United States election, is going to continue. And I do think it's likely that things are going to be intense for the couple of weeks after the election, and not a lot of forward movement. A lot of staying in place, going over and over the same stuff, and feeling that sense of restriction and limitation and being held back in some way or another, at least for a while. So that's there. So I want to let that be there. We know it's there. It's nothing new. I'm talking about this pretty much all year long. But I do want to bring us back to another thing that's going to be happening this next week that's important. And that is the movement of the sun into the sign Scorpio. And that takes place on Thursday, on the 22nd. The sun is going to move into Scorpio. And so at that point, we're going to have 2 planets in Scorpio, and it's going to give us an increase in scorpionic energy here on planet Earth. You know, one of the ways of saying is we're entering Scorpio season. So I want to talk a little bit about the water sign Scorpio, and also its shamanic Egyptian netter, its correlation, which is with the goddess Bast, who is the cat goddess. You know, the sign Scorpio is one of the more intense signs of the zodiac. It is a water sign, and so it has many of the characteristics that the water signs have, which is emotional sensitivity, emotional, kind of a psychic ability that comes from being able to tune in to other people's emotional state. The other two water signs are Cancer and Pisces, and all three of these signs share that. They react to it and they use it in different ways. And the way Scorpio uses this energy is with a lot of intensity. You know, if Cancer is like the ebb and flow of the ocean, it's the tides, and Pisces is the vastness of the ocean. You know, if we're out on the calm sea and we see the vastness, that's Pisces. Scorpio is like the ocean during a storm. You know, it's like a lightning storm, and the waves are high, and there's shipwrecks, and people can drown. It's intense. It's passionate. It's the nature of the sign. And it also deals with some pretty intense subjects in life. It represents it follows on the heels of the sign Libra, which is the desire to relate. And Scorpio represents that point where we take that desire to relate, whether it's with another human being, whether it's with the divine, whatever it might be, and we merge with it in some way. So Scorpio has this very strong desire nature, and that desire nature is about the desire to merge. And being led by that very strong desire nature takes Scorpio into some interesting territory. You know, in many traditions, the sign Scorpio has three symbols. Its most traditional symbol in astrology is the scorpion. And the thing about the scorpion is if it's angry and it has no one to sting, it will sting itself and then it dies. And there is a kind of a self-sabotaging quality that can come with the sign Scorpio. And Scorpio natives know what I'm talking about. It's particularly strong when the Scorpio individual is young. And hopefully as they move through life, they divorce themselves from it, they let it go, they keep the passion and intensity and let go of the self-sabotage. If they don't, then they will have to deal with the consequences of that behavior as they move through life, which can be quite intense. You know, it's an underworld kind of sign and comfortable with underworld energy. And so, you know, individuals who stay in that place of self-sabotage can spend a lot of time in the underworld and dealing with dark nights of the soul. So, you know, there's that intensity around that. The second symbol that's often associated with the sign Scorpio is the phoenix, which is a mythical bird that crashes into the earth, bursts into flames, and then arises out of the ashes. And this is a symbol of renewal, and it's also a symbol of death and rebirth, which is very much what Scorpio is about. It's ruled by Pluto, Lord of the underworld. Pluto is Osiris, Lord of regeneration. Regeneration is about that eternal cycle of death and rebirth. Out of death comes life, out of life comes death. You know, that's the symbol that's associated with the phoenix, or that's the information that's associated with the phoenix. And, you know, that's the intermediary symbol for Scorpio, is that understanding. It's the resiliency that comes with Scorpio. And Scorpio is an intense sign and can walk that edge between death and life, doing things that other people wouldn't dare to do. You know, taking risks, whether it's risks in sexuality, risks in behavior, risks with drugs and alcohol, risks with emotional behaviors, whatever it might be, living on the edge until they get tired of it. Because that crashing and burning, while it's wonderful to know that you can crash and burn and then rise anew, it's exhausting. The third symbol of Scorpio is the eagle. And in many Native American traditions, the eagle is spirit. It's not just meeting spirit. It's not messenger of spirit. It's spirit itself. And the thing about the eagle is no creature on earth flies as high as the eagle, But the eagle can also, under its own power, come down to earth, land in a tree, land on the ground. It can take off and soar high. It can come down and land gently. It does not have to crash and burn. And it's that connection with spirit that is the highest expression of the sign Scorpio. And we really see this in its correlation, its alliance with the goddess Bast. You know, Bast is the cat goddess. And in ancient Egypt, she's a house cat. You know, she's a house cat that was often portrayed as wearing beautiful jewels. The mummies that have been found of cats, you know, of the royalty and the upper class citizens of Egypt, they often adorned the mummies with precious jewels. Cats were considered good luck in ancient Egypt, and on the New Year, people would give each other baskets of kittens as a wish for good luck during the year. They had an obvious practical role in the household in that they killed mice. And that's the thing about Scorpio. Scorpio also rules death, you know, so it's not a stranger to things ending, the ending of life. But they were also associated with bringing prosperity and bringing abundance to the home. So they were a very important animal to the ancient Egyptians. And the Temple of Bast, there were a number, the temples of Bast were quite prominent in ancient Egypt. These were the homes of the priestesses of Bast. And the priestesses of Bast were the sacred sexual priestesses. Again, Scorpio deals with sex. And it was their job, their role, in a sense, was to practice the sacred sexual arts, which we can recognize in our modern world as the tantric arts. And the tantric arts are always very interesting because, of course, tantra can be used for a number of different things. In its highest expression, tantra is the spiritual practice of engaging in sexual union with another person and thereby experiencing union with the divine through that process. And it also can be greatly misused, as all sexuality, as many things Scorpio can be. And there can be that place where that tantric arts crosses over into sexual addiction and even into perpetration. You know, so that can happen. You know, there's always sketchy with the sign Scorpio as to which way this energy is going to go. And which way it goes has to do with the intent of the individual who's holding the energy. Now, the thing about Bast, you know, not only was the temples of Bast the place where soldiers would go when they came back from battle to experience sacred union with the priestesses and thereby be healed of the experiences that they'd had in battle, the terror, the violence, the fear, so that they would not take it home to their families, to their wives and their children. They would be cleansed of it, purified of it, through the fires of sexuality, the fires of tantric union. That was the place where they did that. This was also the place where pregnant women would go to have their babies. And the priestesses of Bast would create a beautiful birthing chamber for the mother that was full of luxurious fabrics and full of sensual experiences in order to help the woman move through the painful process of birth in a sensual way. Their objective was to bring together in all things the opposites. In this way, the opposites of pleasure and pain. The pain of childbirth with the pleasure and sensuality of having new life born from you and being so grounded in the physical form. This is true of sexuality as well. There is a painful aspect of sexuality that is also extremely pleasurable. This is part of the way Bast operates, is helping us to be willing to move past our fear of pain in order to open up to new life, in order to open up to something new. You know, the French refer to orgasm as le petit mort. And pardon my French accent, it's not very good. I don't know French. But what that means is the little death. You know, that's what orgasm is. It's a little death. It's a psychic, energetic, and emotional and physical cleansing, which allows us to disassemble and reassemble in a new way. This is the territory of Bast. And what she does is she uses our longing for something to awaken our willingness to go through that process of death. So it's very obvious when it comes to sexuality. You know, that desire to be in sexual union with another human being. We can call it lust, we can call it love, whatever we want to call it. That desire for union with another person will move us towards taking the risk of entering into relationship with another individual and experiencing that process where we can disassemble and reassemble on many levels, you know, sexually, but also allow our lives to be disassembled and reassembled. But she also uses this energy to activate our longing for anything in our life. You know, what is it that we most long for? What does our soul long for? What is our soul's yearning? Is it a different job? Is it a different relationship? Is it something new in the relationship we currently have? Is it a new place to live? Is it a new behavior? Do we want to die to an addiction and be born to sobriety? Do we want to die to codependency and be born to interdependency, relationship with others in a non-controlling way? You know, what do we want in our life? What do we desire? She awakens that longing, and through that desire, she increases it so that we're willing to take the step, because the step towards birth is preceded by a step towards death. In order for something new to be born, something has to die. This is very relevant to where we are on a collective level and where many of us are in our individual lives. We have to be willing to embrace the death that is happening in order to allow the new thing to be born that's waiting to be born but isn't quite there yet because we're still going through the death process. So what I would like to offer today is a journey with the cat goddess Bast, and a journey around our own holy longing to awaken that soul's yearning and allow ourselves to be willing to be pulled toward it, and to know that what we're really being pulled toward is a process of death that will move us through the underworld and allow us to be reborn into a new life. So I want to invite you to get yourself comfortable. Allow yourself to settle in. Put your feet on the floor. And it's important for this particular journey to make sure that you are comfortable. You know, think of the temples of Bast. You know, the birthing chamber, which is going to be filled with beautiful soft fabrics. And the priestesses of Bast are going to be carrying trays of wonderful food, sensually tasting food. And they're going to have oils to anoint us. Think of that. Allow yourself to feel comfortable. And maybe even feel a little luxurious. So take a nice deep breath, letting go of distractions. And another. And I invite you to imagine that you are in that temple. You are lying on a beautiful bed, a soft bed that is covered with soft fabrics in your mind's eye. Stretch your hand out and touch them. Feel how soft they feel, how wonderful they feel. The priestesses are all around you. They are anointing your body with precious oils. They are soothing you. They're stroking your hair. They're touching your skin. They are awakening within you feelings of sensuality, the luxurious feeling of being in a body. There are cats moving around the chamber. And if in this life you are allergic to cats or you don't like cats, know that in this world they are safe. You can watch them gliding around, so comfortable in their bodies. Perhaps one of them comes up to you and rubs up against you. Their fur is so soft, inviting you to reach out and stroke them and feel that softness of fur, those supple bodies. And you realize now that a beautiful woman has come into the temple room. And this woman is taller than the priestesses. She has a commanding presence about her. She's incredibly beautiful. This is Bast, the great goddess Bast. And she comes over and she sits next to you on the place where you are lying. And she looks down into you. There's something feline about her beautiful eyes. And she smiles at you. And she emanates a great love towards you. She reaches out and strokes your hand. And you feel the softness of her skin connecting with yours. And there is a transmission in that touch, a quickening within you, an awakening, a desire. And she takes her other hand now and she places it on your solar plexus. That's the area around your belly button. And she presses down and she feels within you. She's feeling for your soul's longing, for what it is your soul yearns for next in your life. And she pulls it out like a cord, and she's pulling it forward. She stands up and she backs up. She's pulling that cord forward. And she's inviting you to allow yourself to be pulled forward. Be pulled forward by the yearning of your soul. And I'm going to be quiet now for a few minutes and let you go on a journey with Bast as she takes you toward your soul's yearning, that which you most wish to manifest in your life, in your next version of yourself, the next being you're going to be, the next octave that you're growing into. Feel that tug in your solar plexus and allow yourself to be pulled forth. Go on a journey with Bast, the cat goddess. Nice deep breath. Allow yourself to be pulled forward into your holy longing. It is time now to bring this journey to completion. And to return to the temple room, lying back down upon the bed. And as you do, you find that you fall back into the loving wings of Isis. She who is with us through every process of transformation and change. And Isis stretches her beautiful rainbow wings out. And she wraps them around Bast and pulls Bast forward, pulls Bast into you, anchoring this beautiful cat goddess into your body. So that you can remember your holy longing. So that you will continue to feel that tug, that pull of your soul's yearning, pulling you forth into right action, into a willingness to let go of that which needs to be released, so that you can step forward into the next incarnation of you. So you can stay in touch with your holy longing. Feel the loving energy of these two beautiful goddesses. And give thanks to them both. Do not forget them in the days and weeks ahead. Take a nice deep breath. And slowly come back into the room. Thank you. We will talk again.